So, texture layering in the visual engine. What do I mean by texture layering? If I move this rock around, or if I rotate it, you will notice this moss is always staying on top. So this is a top projected layer, and if I move the rock around, you will notice an additional texture layer which is mapped in world space, and it is adding more definition to the rock, this rock being a pretty big asset. And with big assets, if the texture is quite low, you will notice that the texture is low resolution, so we can use a detail layer to add more definition to the rock. And later on we will look at some more examples with texture layering. For instance, Angry Mesh is using a scanned tree base combined with a tileable texture, so this is also achieved in TVE using the same two features, and those are the layer settings and the detail settings. So you might have seen them already, and these settings allow you to add an additional texture layer on top of the main layers, and the detail settings and the layer settings are exactly the same. They just provide two additional layers to be used on top of the main layer. And you can also extend that in Amplify if you need another layer. There is a shader block called stack settings, and you can add an additional layer if needed, but I will not cover that today because for Amplify I will create a new tutorial specifically for extending the TV shaders. Okay, so what I want to do with this rock to reset everything and start again with the detail settings and with the layer settings to add the moss and to add the detail mapping on the rock. Okay, so what I will do, I will go over here to the material preset, and I have these utilities to reset the detail settings and to reset the layer settings. So reset layer settings, and we are back to only the first layer. Okay, this is a rock from Angry Mesh PBR rocks. I simply converted it, and I want to add the moss on top. Okay, so I have these layer settings. I will simply enable it. Everything is white because this layer is white, and what I want to do is to add the moss. So I will add the moss. I will add the textures. Okay, and for this moss I'm using these layer settings, but previously I had the detail set on the layer settings and the moss set on the detail settings. So I know this might sound counterintuitive, but as I said, these two layers are basically the same, so it doesn't really matter. So don't get too attached to the naming, because you can use them in any way you want. So I will show you, for instance, I had cases when somebody already used the layer settings for moss and then decided to add a detail layer. So I will show you how, once this is set up, how you can move these settings to the detail settings. Okay, so first of all, let's finish with the top projected moss. what I want to do, instead of using this main UV, I want to map these textures in workspace in the ZX axis. So I will change this layer sampling to planar, and since now this is planar, if I move this rock around, the textures are mapped in workspace, but only on the z-axis, not on the y. So this is an optimization. For instance, you don't really need to use triplanar mapping for moss. In this case, if I want it to be projected from the top, so it is 3 times more optimized than using a triplanar mapping. Okay, and if you worked with the TV layers, you know that the first part is taking care of the shading, the second part is taking care of the blending, how this layer is blended with the previous layer, and the third part is the masking. So to make this layer be projected from the top, we will need to use this projection mask, and if I enable it, now my layer is projected from the top. Okay, and you can always remap these masks to your liking. So this is having a lot of masking options. If I'm using more masks, what I can do, instead of remapping this projection mask over here, I can remap the final blend mask, which is the combined masks, and I will remap that final mask. So in this case, it doesn't really matter, since I'm only using one mask, I can simply remap this mask. But for instance, let's add some noise to break up the repetition of this moss. So I have this layer mask. I will simply search for some noise. Let's see what I have over here. So maybe this one. And I will enable this texture channel mask. And once I enable it, it is using this mask over here. And I will set this one to planar as well, so it is mapped in workspace. Maybe I change the tiling to something smaller. Okay, and now instead of maybe a bit higher. Okay, and maybe I will reduce this texture channel mask a bit and remap this final blend mask over here. So again, you need to play with the settings. Okay, it looks pretty bad, but I just wanted to show you how you can do this. I can stay and tweak these settings until tomorrow. Okay, so let's move on. So we have the top projected moss, and if I rotate now this rock, the moss is always staying on top. Okay, so as I said, I want to add a detail layer, but the detail layer should stay before this moss. So what I can do, I can go to the material preset, and I have this utility over here to copy the layer settings to the detail. So copy layer to detail, and now what this is doing is copying all the settings from the layer to the detail. So now I have this moss on the detail layer, not on the layer settings. So I will reset the layer settings and start with the detail mapping. So reset layer settings. Okay. And for instance, when do you want to use detail mapping? If, for instance, I have this albedo, this albedo is 4K, and I added this human over here. If I'm looking at this rock up close, this is looking quite good because it is 4K. But what if I don't afford to use 4K in my game on every rock? For instance, let's set it to 2K, and let me go to the normal and set it to 2K as well. Now this rock looks quite low resolution, so we can kind of fix that with a detail mapping. So let's do that. I will enable this layer again, and in the Angry Mesh PVR rocks there is this detail texture which we can use. It is only having the albedo and the normal, but that's enough for us. And I want to set this to triplanar to be mapped in world space, because when you combine multiple rocks together, this detail mapping being mapped in world space, it will tie everything together. Okay, and now this is the layer is applied fully on the rock. What I want to do is to blend the albedos, but once I blend these albedos, these two layers, these two albedos are just multiplied together. How do I make this detail albedo work as a detail mapping in the Unity shaders? That's super easy. I just need to double the color, and this is what Unity is doing internally. So I will just set these values to 2. And now, instead of just being multiplied, they are multiplied and then multiplied by 2. So these two layers are blended together. I will also blend the normals together. So I want this detail mapping to show the main normal, so we can see the rock normal. Okay, and I will also blend the shaders. What do I mean by blending the shaders? If this is having some smoothness applied, I want to also blend the layer smoothness with the main smoothness. But since the layer should not have any smoothness on its own, what I will do, I will simply set this smoothness to 1 and this occlusion to 1, and now this occlusion and the smoothness and the metallic are, if the slider is set to blend shaders, they are multiplied with the previous layer settings, so with these settings. So now basically the layer smoothness and occlusion is not used at all, but it is simply using the previous layer shading. Okay, maybe something smaller. And when you use detail mapping, since this is set to triplanar, it might look a bit procedural. So what I want to do is to break up the repetition of this detail mapping a bit. So if I move it around, I can see that that triplanar mapping, and it is cutting a bit from the shape of the rock. So what I want to do is to add a bit to break the repetition a bit. So what I did in the case of the moss, I added a noise, but in this case I want to have that mask a bit more specific, and I will use the main shader mask. This is having in the green channel an ambient occlusion, and I can use this ambient occlusion to break up the detail mapping a bit. So I will use this texture over here as the layer mask. Okay, and I will enable the layer mask, and I will remap it a bit just to break up that detail texturing a bit. So it is not much, but this is looking too procedural, and this is adding a bit more definition to the rock. So you can see the shape of the rock a bit better. Okay, if I move it around, everything looks quite good. Okay, so I think I covered everything for the rock. No, actually. So when I use this layer mask over here, a new texture is used, and I could use this base mask instead of this texture channel mask. I can use the base mask. What is the base mask? The base mask is getting the previous layer blue channel from the main shader texture, so this one. And Angry Mesh is having this noise over here. I will enable the, instead of using the texture channel, I will use this base mask, and you can see that noise which is stored in the main shader texture, but I don't want to use that. I want to use that ambient occlusion. So what I will do, I will select this texture, and Unity is having this swizzling over here, so you can basically copy this green channel in the blue channel. So it is using the green channel of the texture in the blue channel as well, because we don't we cannot do much with this noise in the context of this rock over here. So I will copy it to the green channel, apply, and now the blue channel is also containing that ambient occlusion. Okay, so over here in the layer settings, instead of using this texture channel, I will simply use this base mask and remap it as well. And this way, instead of having an additional texture with mapping and everything, I simply use the previous layer base mask, which is the blue channel of the main settings. And this is a bit more optimized, but we have the same effect. If I move the UV around, using the base mask will follow this UV as well. Okay, and I want to cover this multi-mask as well when using layering. For instance, if I want to use the dryness settings, I will enable the dryness settings, and I will set this dryness to be local. So I will set this Atmo mask to 0, so it doesn't use any global value. And when I set this dryness, actually this dryness is using this multi-mask. If the multi-mask is set to 0, then the entire object is colored using this dryness color. But if I'm using this multi-mask, you will see only some portions of the rock are colored. So what is controlling this? This is controlled by this multi-mask remapping over here. So the main settings are having this multi-mask, the layer is having this multi-mask over here, and the detail is also having this multi-mask. So what I want to do is to only apply the dryness on the moss. So on the main settings, I will set this one to 1 and 1, and this will make my mask have a value of 0. On the layer settings, which is used for detail in this case, I will also set this multi-mask to 1 and 1, and this is making the multi-mask 0, so nothing is applied on this detail, but on the moss I will set this one to 0 and 0, and this will make this detail mask have a value of 1. So now my dryness is applied only on this layer. So this is the way to control for the dryness, for the tinting, which layer is affected by the tinting, by the dryness, by the subsurface effect. Okay, so let's look at some more examples over here. For instance, Nature Manufacture is using layering for the trees. I think some part of the mesh is scanned and the top part is tileable. So if we look at this material, if I color some of the layers, you will see some parts are colored with red and the other parts, now this is colored to red. So Nature Manufacture is using 2 layers blended with a texture probably mapped, so everything is mapped. No, the second layer is mapped on UV4, and the first layer is mapped on UV1. So probably a scan and a tileable texture. Angry Mesh is using a similar approach, but he is combining a scanned base with a tileable texture in the same texture. So this is an atlas mapped like this, and the same textures are used twice, but the first layer is on UV0 and the second layer is mapped in this extra UV, which is UV4. Okay, and I have this moss over here, which is using the same approach I did with the base mask. So we have the second layer, which is the moss, and it is using this base mask and a mesh mask. And in the mesh mask, if I enable, I go to Boxophobic, Scene Debugger. If I go to Vertex Alpha, there is this height stored in the mesh, and I'm using this Vertex Alpha over here as a mask texture, but inverted, because the mask is going from black to white on the top, so I need this mask inverted. And I'm using that one. I'm using the base mask over here inverted again, and in the base mask I use the ambient occlusion of the tree as the base mask, the same way I did previously. I remapped the channels over here, so I copied the green channel to the blue channel. Okay, and I combined these two masks, and then I'm using this final blend mask to remap the entire masking. And one thing I want to show you as well, to visualize these layer masks a bit better, you can go to TV, Scene Debugger, and we have the material features. We have the layer settings over here, and you can visualize the layer mask to see it better. Okay, so I think I covered everything I wanted to cover in this video. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. So bye.